Instant yes. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make techno like Boris Brejcha. Over the past few months, I've been doing these in the style of videos and they've been getting an insane response from you guys, so thank you for that. And I've had a lot of requests for Boris Brejcha, so that is what we are focusing on today. I'm doing this in Ableton Live 10, but you can follow along in any DAW, and I'm only using stock plugins as well. We've got loads to get through today. We will be going through the kick and the percussion. We will be going into the Boris Brejcha style bass line and synth riffs, and we will do an epic breakdown as well. We will also be going a bit into mixing and arrangement, and you can download this project for free below this video with all the samples, all the synth presets that I've used, so don't forget to do that. If you dig this video, give it a big fat thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for tutorials like this each and every week. Without further ado, let's hop into the DAW and get it done. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is select the tempo. I'm going to select 125 BPM because that is the kind of tempo that Boris Brejcha, yes, I did have to look up how to pronounce his name, but that's the kind of tempo he writes at. Cool. Second thing, let's name this bad boy. I'm going to call it TECHNO because it's my channel and I can give things ridiculous names if I like. So I've set up this sidechain channel, which we will be using later, and I will explain it then. But the first thing we're going to do is get a nice solid kick. So I'm just going to create a MIDI channel. You could do this in audio, of course, but I'm going to be using a MIDI instrument. I'm going to use a drum rack. That's just how I like to work. Let's call that kick. And then it's a matter of finding a nice solid chunky techno kick. Now the main thing about Boris Brejcha's style is it's kind of minimal. It's sounds great in the club. I'm reading from my notes here, and yeah, he calls it high-tech minimal. So fewer elements, really solid, really kind of punching through, not too much complexity. Bosh, let's get it done. Okay. So I'm going to go to the current project because I've saved some of these samples, but let's listen to my kick. Like nothing special, but quite solid, very tight. So that's the kick we're going to use. I'm going to create a MIDI clip. I'm going to call this kick, and then I'm going to program it in like so. And we've got two different sections that we're going to be creating. Really, we need to create the drop, which will be like on one note, and then we'll create some epic break in Boris Brejcha's techno style as well. But first, and we'll get to that in a sec, let's just program the kick in because that's basic, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to classic. I'm going to select release to be a little bit, and decay to be 1, and sustain to be full. And that is because we want the MIDI notes to stop the kick playing as soon as the MIDI note's over. So if we've got release full, it's actually a short kick, so it doesn't make much difference, but this will basically cut off the tail of the kick if it was a long kick, leaving more space for our open hat. Right, excuse me. As I said, no editing. This is a one-take video. Cool, so let's now create some epic chord progression, and that's going to give us the key of the track that we want to work in. So to do this, I'm just going to load up a grand piano sound, just a standard one, just so I can jam out some chords. So grand piano, here we go. Stick that on. I've got my MIDI keyboard here, and let's just play. Minor. It would be good to be minor, and I'll show you how to program this if you don't know any chord theory or music theory, or you can't play the piano. Give me a sec, let me just jam something out. Instant yes. Okay. Feels. Yes, okay, that is going to be our chord progression. That is on an F. So I'm going to show you how you can do this if you don't know any music theory whatsoever. So let's just draw in the bass notes. I said it was F. So, and I said it's minor, so it's F minor. So what I'm going to do is draw in all the notes of the scale of F minor natural. And you can check out the video there or there, wherever it is, and it's going to show you the intervals in between each note. So you can do this for any key. Anyway, okay, let's do it. And I'm going to use my template technique, which loads of you guys will know. Minor third. So they are all the notes in the key of F minor natural. I got that right, yeah. So what I'm going to do is grab them all, just press left cursor to put them outside of the clip, so they're not going to play. If you're using FL Studio, you can just use their scale things to do this. You don't need to draw it out manually. And I'm just copying it and duplicating it by holding Alt. 1 octave above, 1 octave below, and then press Fold, and we've got 3 octaves now of F minor natural, so we can't go wrong. Anyway, let's recreate those chords I just did. Metronome on. Cool. So you can see I'm just using this template now. I've pressed Fold. So they were the bass notes, and now let's draw in the chords above them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy those, and I'm going to duplicate them and drop them down an octave by holding Shift and down, press up, and now this is so we can now make the chords 1 octave above. So I'm going to just miss a note each time to build these chords. See, just 1 note in between each one. But I'm actually just going to play that first note over and over. And it's going to work because, as you can see, it's just using notes from within the key of F minor natural. So let's get this done really quickly. Just duplicate, duplicate. Feels, definite feels, lush. Okay, and we can actually drop the second note there as well for ultimate feels. Oof. Okay, so it looks like our break is going to be this chord progression. It's in the key of F minor natural, so our drop is going to be in F minor natural as well. So let's get that drop built. First thing after the kick would be the bass. So Boris Brejcha uses a very simple synth to make his sounds. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do this all with the synths in Ableton Live, but of course you can follow along using any synth in any DAW. I'm going to keep things simple. So I'm going to use analog. And we're just going to base that bass note on a saw wave, and we'll tweak it. So first thing we're going to do is just create a MIDI clip, call it bass, and we're going to just do a 1 note bass line pattern like this with our kick. And you can record it. It didn't loop though because I forgot to move the loop brace, but this is fine. We can just move that over. I'm going to quantize it. I'm going to quantize it big time because I want it to be exactly on time, in time, because it's techno, and I'm going to be using groove in a bit as well. Okay, I did actually have a quick break there because my brother rang. Right, I've deleted that bass line because it didn't work properly. So I'm just going to re-record that. What did I do? Yeah, just on one note. Here we go. Cool. Okay, let's double click on that. Grab it all, quantize it. Okay, I'm just going to delete the rest of those. I'm going to make sure that the velocity is the same. And now we're going to do a bit of sound design on this bass. So first thing I'm going to do is select one voice because we only want the bass in mono. I'm choosing a sub bass for the second oscillator, just a sine wave. The first oscillator is a saw wave, and then we're going to take the frequency down. Well, first let's tweak the amp decay, sustain, release. So it's much more stabby. Decay, bit of release. Cool. Now we'll do the same with the filter envelope. That sounds pretty good actually. I'll leave it as it is there. Cool, so that's the basic bass sound. Now what we have got to do on my magic notes is we're going to apply a bit of groove to this. So what I'm going to do is I've opened up my groove library in Ableton. I'm just going to drag this MPC 1664, let's see what it's called. Yeah, swing 64. I've toned the timing down a bit, so there's a bit of swing, and this just humanizes the rhythm. You'll hear it more clearly when we've got the shaker. Okay, on to the next thing. We will be going back to that bass. Next will be drums. Going to color them green. I'll put them above the bass. Another drum rack, I think, which is Ableton's native drum kind of sample thing. Now let's get some samples in there. So we want the main clap first. Now we're going to do a Boris Brejcha nice wide clap actually. So I'm going to use two clap samples, pan one right and one left. And here's some I made earlier in the current project. Again, you can download all of these samples for free. I've included them. So we've got these two very short claps, and they're going to be panned left and panned right. So let's put one there. Let's drag and drop that one there. And we'll just pan one, probably 30 left and then 30 right as well. So they're not super fully panned left and right, but almost. Sounds a bit dodgy at the moment, bear with me. What I'm going to do is actually zoom in and offset them slightly to give it more of a human feel. So it's a bit looser. And now let's just duplicate that. And we'll turn them down a little bit. I'll just turn the whole drum. In fact, I'm going to turn that down by 6, this down by 6, and this down by 6, just to make sure that we've got plenty of headroom on the master fader. And then I'm going to turn these down as well, just because they're a bit loud and we want the other drums to be able to be loud. Check in mono. And this is my mono switch here, which just switches between mono and stereo, so I can check that the mix still works. Okay, next, hi-hat. And we're going to apply the groove to this too. Let's drag in this first hi-hat. It's kind of a white noisy hi-hat. That's strange. It's not showing in my drum rack. How bizarre. Right, I'll try that again. So that should create... it's because fold is selected. So there's a quick tip for you. Make sure fold's not selected. And again, we are going to be changing the length of this drum by using attack, decay, sustain and release. We'll turn snap off, go to the ADSR settings. We want it really snappy. Cool. Okay, next we are actually, I'll bump up the kick a little bit. Right, next thing is drag that swing onto there, and then we are going to create a shuffle, which is going to be the groove. So again, I'm just going to do this in MIDI, but you could do this with an audio sample as well. Let's color that green. Let's get some shaker and load it into a sampler. Doesn't matter what sampler you use, the simpler the better. You don't need special controls for this. Shaker, drop that in, and then we're just going to program a shaker on the 16ths. Just copy and duplicate that. Bit loud. Okay, now we're going to apply the groove to all the channels, making sure they've all got that swing. So that's full swing. This is zero swing. And we want a bit of swing. Cool. Next is applying some sidechain compression, which I'm sure you've all seen. Usually I would use the LFO tool for this by Steve Duda, but I want to do it all using Ableton plugins, so I'm just going to actually sidechain compress. So I will drop that on the shuffle. I'm going to call this pump comp, so we know what it's for. I'm going to open up this and choose sidechain input SC, which is one I made earlier. And all I did there is load a sampler up, program in a little beat with just a little hi-hat, and then make sure that I've got sends only selected here, so you can't actually hear it. You can only send it to other effects like this sidechain compressor. So you can hear it's ducking that shuffle now. And I'm just going to get it so it's a nice rhythm with my track. That's cool. I'll apply that to the bass as well. So now the bass is pumping a bit. Right, okay, on to the next thing. Claps, hat, shuffle, ba-ba-ba, crackle. Let's add a bit of crackle. Snap, crackle and pop. I'll do this with an audio track actually. This is going to be just a white noise crackle, a vinyl crackle, just to add some extra interest and texture to the beats. Right, here's one I made earlier. Again, you get this free. Where is my... Here we go. I made a loop out of it, this vinyl crackle. I'll just use the first part of it. Obviously that sounds horrible. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an equalizer, filter out some of the low frequencies. And we're going to use a gate, a noise gate as well, to make sure that only the loudest parts are being allowed through. So it just adds that extra click before the beat. That's it. Cool. Okay, on to the next thing. What's on my magic list today? Synth riff. Okay, this is where the real groove comes from. We will be getting back to that bass line, so don't worry. But this synth riff is another classic Boris Brejcha type effect. Again, I'm going to do it using a very simple synthesizer. I'm going to use the analog again in Ableton. And again, a saw wave. And I'm kind of basing this on his I think it's called To the Moon or something like that. But this idea from that track of his. Let's see, synth riff. And now let's just, again, we're going to select mono because we don't want more than one note playing at once. And then we are going to tweak these attack, decay, sustain, release. Make it really rhythmic. Like this. And now let's put in a little riff. Again, this is going to have to be in the same key, but you could just do it on F itself. Cool, we're just gonna copy and duplicate that, turn it down a bit, apply the groove, very important. So we're getting there now, we're getting that groove going. Right, on to the next thing. Don't worry, we will be going into the mixing of all of these. If you've liked it so far, give me a hell yeah below in the comments. In fact, give me an amen brother. I like those ones because they're pretty rare. Amen brother. And I want to know what you want me to produce next. Okay, leave me a comment. Without further ado, let's carry on. And if you like it, don't forget to subscribe. Next one, Synth Riff 2. This is when I'm doing everything and then we'll bring in the elements. We won't obviously have them all at once at the beginning of the track. That would be cray-cray. That would be crayfish. So let's just add the elements and then we can work with them later. Synth Riff 2. And I'm just going to duplicate this sound because we're trying to work quickly. And I'm just going to choose... This is just going to be like adding some... I'm just going to leave it running on like that actually, and then I'm going to use the Sidechain Compression to give it some rhythm. Groove, apply that. I'm just going to copy the pump compressor, paste it. So you can hear now it's got rhythm. I'm going to apply a bit of this to the first synth riff. But only a bit because we want to hear the notes that are hitting when the kick plays as well. Okay, on to the next thing. Main riff. This is going to be what we are going to use in the drop, sorry, in the break. So this is going to be like an epic sound. I'm going to use a bit of a more complex synthesizer for this. I'll use the wavetable, and I'm just going to listen through some of the presets and then tweak it as needed. So let's press that hot swap button, go to synth keys. Go on. My new computer should be here tomorrow, so that won't be a problem in future. Come on, there must be something good here. This is what it's a case of, listening to different synths, presets, and finding one that kind of almost works. That sounds cool. Right, okay, before I write the riff in, let's add some auxiliary channels and get some reverb in here because it's sounding a bit dry at the moment. I'm just gonna grab those and extend them so we can see what. Gonna create 4 return channels or auxiliary channels. Call this room reverb, call this hall reverb, call this I don't know, we'll name that as and when we need them. So the first would be the room reverb. I'm going to grab a normal reverb. I usually use Valhalla Room for this because it sounds a bit better than the Ableton one, but again, all in Ableton, that's what I'm doing it. Boosting up the gain because it seems to be a bit quiet, the reverbs from Ableton. Rolling off the low end on the auxiliary channel so we don't get clutter. And then tweaking the decay time. So you can already hear that sounding cool. I'm going to actually apply some sidechain compression to that room reverb as well. Cool, okay, it's basic at the moment. This is something cool that he does on his synths as well. If you add a bit of delay, we can then, in fact, I'll add that before the pump compressor. We can create this cool effect. So I'm going to unlink those. So you can then automate those delays, which sounds pretty dope. So we will be doing some of that soon as well, but that gives you a general idea. Okay, so now we are going to add some white noise. So I'm going to give you my white noise generator, which I made. Again, that's included in this project. I'm going to color this bright green because it's an effect. And let's find it. It would be instruments. It would be instrument rack. And it would be Will's white noise. Here we go. So you can just kind of tweak your white noise like that, which is really handy for quick stuff. And this would be being played on the drops. Boris Brejcha loves this stuff. So let's just kind of add a bit. Just kind of fills out that frequency range. But of course we need to get some the mix. It's all about the mix, really. Well, it's all about sound selection, so make sure you get the right sounds first, then we move on to the mix. But let's go into the we'll do the mix soon. I'm just going to add a bit of pump compression to that white noise, and now we are going to move on to the break. Don't worry, we will be going back to the drop to make it sound bigger, but we've got these chords here that we need to do something with. And because it's in the key of F minor, natural, you'll hear that any of the elements we've already made will work over the top of it. So if we just duplicate our synth riffs, check this out. They still sound good, right? So let's create a break bass, and this is just going to be a sustained bass. And over which we'll play our melody, which we're about to work out. So hold tight for that. Again, give this a fat thumbs up if you like it, guys. Let me know in the comments, because I need to know. I'm insecure like that. Right. Break bass. Break in the bass, London. Now I'm going to use a very simple synth again. I'm just going to use an operator today because I just want a sine wave sustained. I'm going to color that yellow because it's my bass color. And let's have a listen. So to do this quickly, I can just grab the bass notes I'd already written in earlier, like so, from the piano, copy them, go into my bass, paste them, bosh, Bob's your uncle. And I might even drop these two last notes an octave down, to sound extra bad boy. And it almost gives it a constantly rising feel. I'm going to drop this piano out when we play our main riff in. That needs a bigger reverb. Okay, this is going to be our synth. I'm going to call this bass reverb actually, and I'll show you why soon. Let's just color that. And this is going to be synth reverb. Oh, come on. This is going to be Synth Reverb. And I'm going to color that my Synth Reverb color. Now we want a much bigger reverb on here, so I'm going to grab this and I'm just going to copy it, and then I'm going to tweak the reverb. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tweak this synth slightly as well. In the matrix, I think there's something cool going on. I think it's this position. Yeah, it's that. Rather than assign that to the LFO, I'm going to make that delete that, and I'm going to, well, it's assigned to envelope 2 or envelope 2. So I'm going to tweak envelope 2 a bit. Just to give it a bit more movement. Okay. So this is the riff from To the Moon by Boris Brejcha. But we don't want to copy that because we're writing our own track. Remember, this is in the style of, I just want to give you some insights into his production techniques, or how I would do it if I was producing tunes like him. But we're going to stick to our tune and work out a riff that's going to work for that. But it's still in the same key, so you could use the template technique again, draw out all of the notes in the key of F minor natural, and then work the melody out that way. And I'll link to something there that you can that's going to help you write melodies easily. I'm just going to write down when this is actually 23 minutes in, so I'll link to that. Cool, okay. But I'm going to do it by ear because I want the feels, baby. That's cool. So I'm gonna program that in quickly. I'll use the metronome to help as well. I haven't made this up before. I'm completely doing this on the fly, so be kind. That's cool. Just going to duplicate that and then switch it up for the second part. Bit cheesy, but I kind of like it. And what we're going to do is we'll introduce that sound earlier into the tune. So what we're going to do now is just do a little bit of arrangement, automation and mixing as we go, because time is ticking and I want to get some maximum value to you guys here. Then we're going to pick some random vocal, because you got to have random vocals, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this breaky bit. Let's have 4 things and then a break. And I'm just going to duplicate this for our main drop. And let's bring their bits in one by one. So, oh, I know what, we're going to add to the drums as well as we go. So we'll start off like this. The bass can come in there. We're going to need some more duplications of that, so let's duplicate that out a couple more times and let's automate this too. So you can hear that Brejcha kind of sound. Let's get this bass cooking. Actually, it needs to be fatter than I've ever been before. So I'm going to put a compressor before that just to fatten it up a bit. And then I'm going to put this free tool on called the Camel Crusher, which you can download if you look up for it online. And I'm just going to add some of this. And we want to create that Brejcha movement. I've just coined that phrase. And we're going to do that by automating the filter cutoff of the bass. So let's hit automation mode. Let's right click on this bad boy, show automation. So I've just automated a bit of that cut off on the bass. Which we can do again somewhere else. But we want to get this synth riff kind of cooking along nicely. So I'm going to add some EQ, just get rid of the really low end on that because we don't want it fighting with the bass. I'm just going to kind of record as I go the automation. No, I'm not. I'm just going to program it in because it's quicker. And again, you can do this with the send. You can automate that just to add little bits of tension. And again with the feedback. I hope you're getting the idea, because obviously you can spend a lot of time as you would if you were producing this fully, but it's just to kind of give you an idea as to the kind of effects that you can do. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that delay over to Synth Riff 2 and do the same thing, just so you can hear what it would do. Let's just copy that automation to be obviously later when the sounds are playing. There's the groove. And now let's add some effects. Then we are going to do a bit more mixing and a touch more arrangement, and then job is a good one. But first let's get that random vocal in, because we want to make this epic. We want to make this epic epic breakdown. First, let's get a new hat to build things up. So I'm going to go to my current project. Oh, we've got snare intros and stuff yet to come, so that's cool. Like that. Yeah, we're going to do a little skip beat when the drums are really in. Like so. Turn it down a bit. I'm going to check the levels of the drums in mono. Yeah, that's cool. That's already cool, and that's a fact. So it's just a little skip beat to keep that groove going. Obviously you wouldn't have white noise on every drop. That would be madness. I say madness. So we got that beat in. We're going to add this extra hi-hat. Oh, I kind of need to do some work on that. It's a bit dirty. Bit too much low end in that. That's unnecessary. So let's just tweak the pitch on that hi-hat, make sure it's kind of in tune. Okay, we'll leave it on 0 then. And let's just EQ some of those nasty frequencies out from that by using an EQ8. Too loud, of course. And I'm going to tweak the ADSR to have the decay be a bit snappier than the sustain. And release to 0 because we don't want it to play when when it stops being drawn. Let's just duplicate that. Okay, we need to add some room reverb to this hat because it sounds a bit dry. So I'm going to press IO here, press R there, right click, create return train, then choose my room reverb for my main auxiliary channels, which is here. And now we can apply some of this to our drums as well. So let's do that to the open hat. So I can close this now, like so. So you can hear the drums kind of build. And I'm going to add, what am I going to do next? I'm going to do the drum intro. So I'm just going to create another one. I'm going to call it snare, and that's a MIDI track I've created, but you could do it in audio as well. I'm going to add a sampler there. And I'm just going to do a simple little snare intro. Nothing too cheesy because it's techno, so it's got to be, you know, understated. I want to say refined, but I've been to warehouse parties playing techno and they're not exactly refined. So, I mean, they're good fun if you can remember them. Next, let's choose that snare sound. So, current project. Which snare? Okay, we're going to use this one. It's a bit harsh actually, so I'm going to EQ some of those frequencies out. We'll hear it when it's in situ that it's a bit harsh. It's also very loud. That's cool. You know, this isn't really the kind of drum intro that Boris Brejcha would use, but, you know, as I said, it's my channel. I can do what I want. But I'm going to throw the swing on there. Just to give it more low-end energy. And less of the harsh high-end stuff. Okay, I'm going to show you a really cool trick now for the synth riff too. I'm going to make this wide and I'm going to do this using the Haas effect. In fact, I'm going to make this a bit harsher. I'm going to add some noise, a noise oscillator. And I'm going to tweak these settings a bit. Cool, so here's how you make it nice and wide. You choose a delay. I mean, you can use other things like the Ozone Imager tool, which is free and that's really cool. But I'm going to do this Haas effect with another delay. And what I'm going to do is just take these, unsync them. Take feedback right down, ping pong on, dry, wet, full. And now we're going to have two slightly delayed signals on the left and right, which is going to give it a feeling of stereo width. Check it in mono. Because you can hear it does a weird phase effect. So I rarely use this technique now. I usually use an Ozone Imager. You can hear this is off. Right, this one's confusing things. So this is the Haas effect on this synth riff. This is off and this is on. So we're going to leave it on. It sounds like it's coming through the left a bit more, so I might pan it over. Whoops, wrong channel. Oh no, it's the same. So we'll turn our other effect on, which is cool. But we need more of these effects on the main synth riff. We need to automate the frequency definitely. Okay, now we're getting Brejcha, baby. Etc, etc. Again, time is of the essence, so we're going to kind of, you get the idea. So I'm just going to duplicate and paste those In fact, I'll paste them there, like whatever, like duplicate that and then just there. And then for this intro to the break, we might have something like this. We'll get the bass and we're going to take the frequency right down. And the beauty of this kick, having no release or very little release, is that we can make it very small. It needs a bit more release actually, otherwise it makes a popping sound. So it makes it much shorter, and we can bring this bass right down as well. And we can also play with the decay on the bass as well, just to make it really tight. So again, you get the idea. We're just kind of trying to bring down the energy now for the massive break. And this main riff we are going to introduce beforehand, but filter it in. I want to change that, it doesn't sound good enough. We'll turn down the break bass because it's supposed to just bring in a little bit of energy. So the way we could introduce this is like so. I'm just going to copy some, like the first part of that main riff. And I'm going to automate it with some kind, well, first I'll put an EQ on there, make sure there's no untoward low end, which there is. And then I'm going to choose a auto filter. And I'm just going to introduce it that way, like so. And then to introduce the build back into the drop, then you could bring in some of these elements again, you know, the short stumpy kick, the shuffle. Where's my shuffle? Whoops, we need the sidechain trigger there as well. And then the synth riff would be coming in as well, introducing it. And that's pretty much it, guys. Like, I'm going to do some more work on this and you can download it, but there's only so much I can do in this tutorial. So if you like it, let me know, give me an amen, brother, and you can have this project file. Cheers for subscribing, share it with your friends, all good. Amen, brother. Catch you soon. Cheers and happy producing.